Hi, this is Rich Boren again, with the owner of Cruiser Services, and this is video number 8. We went through all the components of a Schenker Watermaker step by step, what to think about when you're installing it, what are some of the basic maintenance items that are going to make you need to get your hands on this part. So to help you plan where to mount these pieces on the boat. So in this video, number 8 in the series, we're going to talk about some of the things that aren't specific to the different components, kind of as a general overview of some of the things that you need to be aware of as you're planning. So if you've made it this long, you'll get some information that maybe isn't in the manual or the manual doesn't address. But having been doing customer service and support for 24 hours a day almost, 7 days a week, I have a good feel of what you need to think about for a Watermaker install. So let's jump in. The first item is your raw water through hole. Seems kind of obvious, but not thinking about this and maybe putting one in the wrong way can really come back to bite you. So let's talk about the raw water through hole. First, can you share one? You bought the Watermaker, you want to do the install, you don't want to do a haul out just for the through hole. You want to wait until your next haul out. You know, that's acceptable. I've done that on my boat before. Lots of cruisers have. Can you share a through hole safely? Yes. Just put a Y valve in. That way it's 100% Watermaker or 100% other shared device. If you use a T, which some cruisers do, you need to make very sure that the size and volume of that T can handle the volume of both devices running. You don't want to starve the Watermaker. That can damage your feed pump. You don't want to starve your other device. That can damage that device. You surely don't want to pull air bubbles back through the other device into the Watermaker. So for me to be comfortable sharing a through hole, I need to have a Y valve. It's one or the other at a time. Of course, that adds some extra thing to remember. You were using the other device, you turn the Watermaker on, well, now you're not getting any flow. That can damage your feed pump. So you got to be careful. If you're going to have a Y valve, I would make some type of tag or something, a piece of tape I put up there, open Y valve. You don't want to cause drama with your installation approach by not opening that valve. So a dedicated through hole is definitely the best. You can share a through hole if you're going to put a Y valve in and then trust yourself, make a note, have something hanging next to the Watermaker panel to start it so you are sure that that through hole is in the right position. Now, through hole placement. This is important because if your through hole is too far forward, or if this is the shape of your hole, if your through hole is too far up on the side of the hole, when you're heeling over, you're going to get air bubbles sucked into that Watermaker. I have some clients, they can't make water on a starboard tack because when they're heeled over, their through hole is too close to the surface. So you got to be cognizant of that. Ideally, your through hole is going to be in the back 2/3 of the boat, the back half of the boat, really. And then it's going to be as low down in that hull as possible to minimize the chance of air bubbles coming in. So now let's mention the forward-facing scoop. Do you need a forward-facing scoop? Well, maybe. It used to be cruising boats would call me up, hey, Rich, can I make water underway? Yep, no problem. I make water all the way underway all the time. Don't worry about it. That's when a lot of cruisers like to make water. They're out of the anchorage. They're in nice, clean water. Maybe they're motoring a little bit. Heck, turn on the Watermaker. You got free power from your alternator. Well, one time a client called me, Rich, I can't make water underway. My unit, my pump's starving for flow. We troubleshoot a little bit. Finally, I kind of say, hey, how fast are you going? Well, I don't know, 23, 25 knots. Well, hold on a second. A mushroom through hole, when you start going in the mid to upper teens speed-wise, that mushroom through hole at the bottom of your boat, the water moving past it creates a vacuum suction. And you almost have a hard time sucking in the seawater at that point. So if you're a fast-moving boat, a fast-moving catamaran, having a forward-facing scoop really helps. I'm not a fan at all of the mesh of the grills, the grates over your through hole. I think those just add barnacle growth surface area, quite frankly. Your raw water strainer is going to keep out the big chunks. But if a forward-facing scoop may not be a bad idea if you're a fast-moving boat. Unfortunately, I've had a few fast-moving sailboat catamarans that, they're in the upper teens. They don't have a lot of depth to their hull. When they're moving quickly underway, some of them are getting air bubbles streaming down the hull, and they're just unable to make water. Doesn't matter that it's a Schenker or brand ABC. They don't have the hull shape to prevent air bubbles streaming down the hull. Because if there's one thing that'll damage Watermakers, air bubbles on the inlet and chlorine from a freshwater flush without a fresh activated carbon filter. So that's just a reality of the Watermaker dynamic. So if you have a lot of air bubbles streaming through the hull, talk to us. Maybe there's some things we can do plumbing-wise to help alleviate that. So now, the internal plumbing. I tend to like to use the brand of Shields 162 string reinforced vinyl tubing. It's clear so I can see in it. I can see air bubbles. It will withstand the pressure rating of the pumps being pushed into the energy recovery pumps. Because a feed pump is going to outlet about 70 to 100 PSI. So it's got to be proper string reinforced line that can handle that pressure. Or if it's just vinyl tubing that doesn't have any string reinforcing, I've seen those burst. So we need to pay attention to the hose we're using. Hose clamp wise, don't skimp. I know proper hose clamps aren't cheap, but let's put dual hose clamps on all of those hose barb fittings. Let's not rely on a single hose clamp to hold in a seal between the hose barb fitting and 75, 90 PSI of the energy recovery Watermakers. It can actually get that high quite normally. So double hose clamp all your fittings. Let's not skimp on that. Now, in terms of hoses, the Schenker Watermaker is going to be supplied with an 8mm OD product water line. For the units we ship and sell here in the United States, we also include 1/4-inch NPT OD hose and 1/4-inch NPT style fittings to screw into the Watermaker to then go to your hoses, your ship's tank, your fittings. That way, I think it just makes it a little bit easier. So just be aware, the standard Watermaker product line is 8mm hose. If you're getting the unit here in the US through Cruiser Services or one of our dealers that we supply, it's going to have a 1/4-inch OD hose on the smaller units, the Zen 30, the Zen 50. The larger units and the units that have a touch panel display, they're going to stick to the 8mm diameter hose. So you'll need to have a connection hose to go from 8mm onto your plumbing. Now, one thing that's not specifically called for in the manual, but when you look at the winterizing and membrane cleaning section, it talks about putting the suction from the feed pump and the brine discharge and the product water line into your 5-gallon bucket where you're going to be mixing the winterizing or pickling solution and circulating it through the ERS and through the system for 20 minutes. Well, during the installation period, I think is the time to address this. So what I like to do during an install is have a 3-way valve, 2 3-way valves. One of them on the suction side of the feed pump, the other one on the brine discharge line coming out of the ERS. That way, when I go to winterize, I turn those valves. I have a pigtail whip line that I've pre-cut long enough to go into my 5-gallon bucket that I'm going to use for my winterization or my system cleaning. Without those three-way valves in the system, you end up having to take hose clamps apart, stick new hoses onto the hose barbs. And I think we all know what happens to hose that's been hose clamped onto hose barbs over a number of years. You end up removing that stuff with a razor knife. So it's not mandatory. You certainly could have some sticks of extra tubing that you stick onto the hose clamps to create your circulation loop. But I think it's easier to get some three-way valves of sufficient size so you don't neck down the flow that you use as your pickling and your cleaning valves. Normally, during normal operation, the water just flows through those valves. But when you do a pickling or a membrane cleaning, then those valves get turned, the whip line hoses go into a bucket, so you're sucking out of a bucket right into the feed pump. The discharge of your ERS goes back to the bucket, and you can do a nice circulation for 20 minutes to get a good pickling, a good winterization, and a good system cleaning. So that's something to think about as you're planning your install. I think it's easier to do it during the install phase than to have to be pulling hoses off of hose barbs for the rest of your cruise time. So one of the things not provided by Schenker, because we don't know your installation, is the wire size. You'll need breakers, proper size breakers to supply power to the unit upstream of the electrical box. You'll then need proper wire size to get from your electrical panel to the Schenker electrical box, and then from the Schenker electrical box down to the actual pumps itself, if the electrical box is remote. Please don't skimp on electrical wire size. When we're talking DC motors spin slower at lower voltages. So please don't skimp on electrical wire size. Go for the 3% or lower voltage drop in what your electrical chart says you need to run for wire size. Why? Because DC motors, when voltage drop happens on them, so your panel's reading 13.2, down at the pump is 11.9, 12.1. Lower voltage on a DC motor results in the motor spinning slower. That results in less output. So you can kind of shoot yourself in the foot and lower the output of your unit by having undersized wire providing low voltage to your motor. So for me, if the wire size calls for 12, I use 10. If it calls for 10, I use 8. Why? Because over the years of troubleshooting, I've seen problem after problem by voltage drop, for either from poor connections or undersized wire, resulting in slower spinning motors, hotter motors, because voltage drop causes extra resistance and heat on the motors. So don't skimp on wiring size. If the wire size you need to use based on your wire run is too large for the crimp fitting to fit onto the ring terminal in the electrical box, then put a small bus bar right next to the electrical connections, and then have a little 10-inch piece of the 10-gauge wire to complete the run to the Schenker electrical box. That way, that long run may need to be a number 6, a number 8, number 4, whatever it needs to be. Then have a small little 10-gauge, 12-inch jumper going from your little bus bar into the Schenker electrical box. That's the way to handle that. If the wire size needs to be larger than the terminal can handle in the Schenker electrical box. So lastly, I think it's very important, I can't stress this enough. At Schenker, we go out of our way to be available to you guys as quickly and as easily as possible. I mean, I'm a 7-day-a-week guy on WhatsApp, cell phone, email. I would rather have you contact your Schenker dealer, contact who you purchased a water maker from, contact me via WhatsApp. If you have a question during the install, don't stress about it. Don't guess. Reach out to someone on the Schenker team. If they don't know the answer to help you quickly, they'll get the answer quickly. Because we'd rather have you ask questions along the way than make a mistake, hook up something incorrectly, and then have a problem. You know, in this day and age, everyone has a smartphone. You take some photos of your installation along the way, shoot it to us to review. We're happy to look at it and go, yep, that looks good, or whoa, call me. I see something I don't like. So again, I can't stress this enough. If you have a question during the installation or startup of your unit, don't stress about it. Just get a hold of one of your Schenker team members and we're here for you. We try to be the most responsive water maker company on the market because as cruisers ourselves, we understand the realities of being out on a boat, sometimes by yourself in an anchorage. It sure gives you that happy feeling to talk to someone and say, yep, you're right on track. Carry on, amigo. No problems here with what I see. That'll give you that little boost of confidence to not be stressed out about something. A noise happens, something doesn't look right. Take a video, send it to us. We're happy to review it so you know you're on the right track and you're not causing some problem that's going to cost either a warranty or, unfortunately, maybe not a warranty if you totally went off the rails on us. So there's no need to stress. Get a hold of us right away. The Schenker folks in Italy, me here in the United States, we live for this stuff. We're crazy when it comes to that. So get a hold of us with any questions whatsoever. So again, I'm glad you hung in here through all of the 8 videos. It was a long time to make them, and you guys sat through a lot here. But I think if you watch these videos, it'll give you the confidence to not only know what all these pieces do, how they work, where you're going to mount them, but when you're out in the middle of nowhere, having this knowledge is really helpful. So everyone have a great day. I appreciate your trust in us for your water maker out on the boat, and we're here at any time, happy to help. Everyone have a great day.